Tat Sat. Okay. So Narada Muni has just given the riddle, and the Haryashvas have deciphered the riddle. They came to the conclusion, Kemasat Kamabeir Bavet. What is this use of the asat karma if one does not realize their relationship to God, basically? So having come to this sort of conclusion, they renounced asat karma completely and embraced the path of renunciation. Of course, filled with bhakti. And so we're going to hear about what happens after that. Doctor's going to be he's going to be mad about that. So we're going to read a little passage here. Oops. So here, I'm going to start from verse 21. So Shrikadeva Goswami continued, my dear king, after hearing the instructions of Narada, the Haryashvas, the sons of Prajapati Daksha, were firmly convinced. They all believed in his instructions and reached the same conclusion. Having accepted him as their spiritual master, they circumambulated that great sage and followed the path by which one never returns to this world. Haribo, but not for Daksha. The 7 musical notes, Sarag, Hama, Padhi, Padha, and Ni, are used in musical instruments, but originally they come from the Samaveda. The great sage Narada vibrates sounds describing the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. By such transcendental vibrations, such as Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, he fixes his mind at the lotus feet of the Lord. Thus he directly perceives Rishikesha, the master of the senses. After delivering the Haryashvas, Narada Muni continued traveling throughout the planetary systems, his mind always fixed at the lotus feet of the Lord. The Haryashvas, the son of Prajapati Daksha, were very well behaved, cultured sons, but unfortunately, because of the instructions of Narada Muni, they deviated from the order of their father. When Daksha heard this news, which was brought to him by Narada Muni, he began to lament. Although he was the father of such good sons, he had lost them all. Certainly this was lamentable.
6th chapter?
No, this is chapter 5. Yeah. So the news was brought to Daksha by Narada Muni. So Narada Muni just preached to his sons. They all renounced. They gave up the Grihastha Dharma that they had went to this holy place to perform. And then Narada Muni is the cause of that. And then he goes to the father and says, yeah, I did it. So what was his thinking? So here the commentators describe that Narada Muni had actually delivered the whole lineage of descendants of Daksha, starting with Swayambhuva Manu, Uttanapat, Dhruva Maharaj, Prachina Barhishat, then the Prachetas. These are all people who are coming in that lineage. So he's been like the guru for this line for generations and generations and generations. So he was thinking, I've delivered everyone in this line, but I have not delivered Daksha. But now that Daksha is in a teachable moment, because he's suffering, all his sons have left, so he's in this vulnerable space. So Narada Muni was thinking, now he's in a teachable space. So I'll go and preach to him now. Of course, we'll see that Daksha is not going to be so amenable to Narada's instructions. But our commentators are saying that this was the thinking of Narada Muni, that now he is suffering. So suffering usually allows for teachings to come. Just like when people go to funerals, they lose some loved one, they're in a vulnerable space. And at that time, they become open to spiritual messages, right? They call it as Shmashana Vairagya, which means the renunciation that happens at the funeral pit, right? The fire pit. Everyone becomes philosophical when there's a funeral, right? Yeah, we have to really understand what is life, man. They call it as Shmashana Vairagya. So now he is here thinking, now he's in a vulnerable space. Now he'll be open to some messaging. So he's come this time and he's told this thing. But we'll see that Prajapati Daksha is not going to be so happy. Next verse, when Prajapati Daksha was lamenting for his lost children, Lord Brahma pacified him with instructions. And thereafter Daksha begot 1,000 more children in the womb of his wife, Pachajani. This time his sons were known as the Savalashvas. In accordance with their father's order to beget children, The second group of sons also went to Narayana Saras, the same place where their brothers had previously attained perfection by following the instructions of Narada. Undertaking great vows of austerity, the Savalashras remained at that holy place. At Narayana Saras, the second group of sons performed penances in the same way as the first. They bathed in the holy water, and by its touch, all the dirty material desires in their hearts were cleansed away. They murmured mantras beginning with Omkara and underwent a severe course of austerities. For a few months, the sons of Prajapati Daksha drank only water and ate only air. Thus, undergoing great austerities, they recited this mantra. This is a mantra, quote, "Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto Narayana, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is always situated in his transcendental abode. Since he is a Supreme Person, let us offer our respectful obeisances unto him." O King Parikshit, Narada Muni approached these sons of Prajapati Daksha, who were engaged in tapasya to be good children, and spoke enigmatic words to them, just as he had spoken to their elder brothers. O son of Daksha, O sons of Daksha, this is Narada, I guess, please hear my words of instruction attentively. You are all very affectionate to your elder brothers, the Haryashvas. Therefore, you should follow their path. A brother aware of the principles of religion follows in the footsteps of his elder brothers. Because of being highly elevated, such a pious brother gets the opportunity to associate and enjoy with demigods like the Marus, who are all affectionate to their brothers. So, Shukadeva Goswami continued, "O best of the advanced Aryans, Parikshit Maharaj, after saying this much to the sons of Prajapati Daksha, Narada Muni, whose merciful glance never goes in vain, left as he had planned. The sons of Daksha followed their elder brothers. Not attempting to produce children, they engaged themselves in Krishna consciousness. Haribo, but not for Daksha. The Savalashras took to the correct path, which is obtainable by a mode of life meant to achieve devotional service with the mercy of the Supreme Lord. Like knights that have gone to the west, they have not returned even until now." Don't know what that means. Like knights that have gone to the west. Sunsets. Yeah, I guess. They have not returned even until now. At this time, Prajapati Daksha observed many inauspicious signs, and he heard from various sources that his second group of sons, Savalashras, had followed the path of their elder brothers in accordance with the instructions of Narada. When he heard that the Savalashras had also left this world to engage in devotional service, Daksha was angry at Narada, and he almost fainted due to lamentation. When Daksha met Narada, Daksha's lips began trembling in anger, and he spoke as follows. So this is a very nice passage that we're going to hear. Nice means not nice for Daksha, but it's instructive for the bhaktas. So nice in that sense. So Sri Daksha Uvacha, Aho asadho sadhunam sadhu lingina nastvaya, aswadva karya barkanam bhikshur marga pradarshita. Prajapati Daksha said, "Alas, Narada Muni, you wear the dress of a saintly person, but you are not actually a saint. Aho, asado sadhuna, sadhu lingana nastvaya." Sadhu lingana nastvaya means you have the sadhu linga, means the sign of a sadhu. Some dress indicating that you are a saintly person. But you are a sadhu. You are not a saintly person at all. Aho means he's expressing astonishment at this. Indeed, although I am now in Grihastha life, I am a saintly person. Sadhu now, I am the actual sadhu. You are not the sadhu, I am the sadhu. How he can say like this? Because, and Prabhupada explains in the purport that all people who follow their particular dharma on the Varnashram path are all considered as sadhus in their respective positions. So a Grihastha is also a sadhu because he does Grihastha dharma. So that means he is a sadhu. The brahmachari, he is also sadhu because he does brahmachari dharma. So also the vanaprastha and sannyasis, they're also sadhus when they do their dharma. So here, Daksha can appreciate how he's a sadhu because he was doing Grihastha dharma nicely. So nice was his dharma that he got darshan of the Supreme Lord also. So he cannot be said he is not a sadhu. He did nice austerities. He took darshan of the Lord. And he's fulfilling the desire of the Lord also. Because the desire of the Lord is that there should be population in the universe. We heard that earlier. So he is certainly a sadhu, and he can appreciate that. For sure. But he could not appreciate how Narada Muni is also a sadhu. Because Narada Muni is doing his dharma. So as a sannyasi, part of the dharma of a sannyasi is to wander and to preach to the grihastas actually about the path of renunciation. Because after all, life has a particular goal, and the goal is not to remain in the material world perpetually. Only those who are griha pratadnam, adantab ober, vishatamta mishra, puna puna sharita charanana. This verse is coming from Prahlad Maharaj to his father. His father asked him a good question, how you are a devotee. So he says, don't worry, father, you will never be a devotee. Matirna Krishna. You will not be a devotee. Why not be a devotee? Because you are griha vrata. Your vrata is to make the material world your house. You want to remain in this material. That is your vow. So you're very determined to enjoy in this world. Adanta Gober, your senses are uncontrolled. And you'll go to hell for this also. Adanta Gober Vishatam to Mishram. Anyone with uncontrolled sense will move progressively towards hellish life. Not like the literal hell, that too, but your whole life will become actually practical hell. Puna puna sharvita charananam, chewing that which has already been chewed. So he is told this thing. But Daksha is not like Hiranyakashipu exactly. He is also griha vrtanam. He's determined to be in the material world, but he is doing the grihasa dharma. But Narada Muni's dharma is to preach to such grihastas about the path of letting go of this and achieving moksha, in personal or personal moksha. That is their dharma. So Narada Muni is also doing his dharma. You also do your dharma, so you are sadhu, but I'm also doing my dharma, so I'm also sadhu. But he appreciates his dharma, but he's not appreciating Narada's dharma. So he makes this criticism to him. Asadu akari arpakanam. This means, by showing my sons the path of renunciation, you have done me an abominable injustice. Asadu akari, you have done me a great dishonesty here. Why? Arpakanam means his boys. So my boys are inexperienced. So that means they're easily beguiled, basically. That is his feeling here. And how did you beguile them? Bhikshu marga pradarshita. You show them the path, marga, of the bhikshu. Bhikshu means beggar. The path of the beggars. Because renunciates are supposed to be the beggars also, right? They go around begging for foodstuffs and so on. A little milk, whatever. So you show them the path of bhikshu marga, but they are inexperienced boys. So his sense here is that they were announced for 1 or 2 days, maybe up to a week. Then afterwards, they want to enjoy. And that is usually the skepticism, at least in the ISKCON community. If you see that anyone has joined the Brahmachari ashram, like, come on, man. Everyone speaks like this. They don't speak very highly. They're like, this guy will enjoy for 1, 2 days, and then after a week, he will, want to do sense gratification. So these boys are very young and inexperienced, and you've shown them this path of renunciation, for which they're not qualified for. That is the sense there. So then you've done them a great injustice also. And you've also done me a great injustice because I was trying to do this service, and now you've impeded it. So he's very upset about this. All right, next verse. So Renaishri bir amuktana, amimamsita karmana, Vighata Shrayasa Papa Lokayor Upayokrita. Pradidaksha said, my sons were not at all free from their 3 debts. Renaishri Bira Muktana. They were not free of the 3 debts. So apparently, if you take birth as a Brahmana, then there are 3 debts you have to satisfy. Debts to the rishis, debts to the devas, and debts to the forefathers. Actually, in the path of karma, 5 debts are mentioned, right? They're called Panchamahayagya. So debts to the devas, debts to the rishis, debts to the forefathers, debts to the other human beings, and debts to the other species of life. So all grihastas, if they don't do bhakti dharma, they have these 5 debts they're supposed to do. Yeah, devas, rishis, forefathers, other humans, and also the other species of life. So they're called Panchamahayagya. All materialistic grihastas definitely have to follow this Panchamahayagya. As Krishna says in Gita, if you live the life without the yagya, then you live uselessly and in vain and in sin, and you'll destroy your life. So all materialistic persons should follow this Panchamahayagya in the culture. But I guess for the Brahmanas, they specifically had debts to these three. So the debts to the rishis is satisfied by brahmacharya, because brahmacharya is the time of learning. And in Vedic culture, you learn from the rishis. Now, I don't know what they're teaching these kids in school now. I mean, I have a sense, and it's not very good. Makunda, he wants to send his kids to public school, so I'm always making a joke about that. But be careful. He may go in a boy and come out a girl. If you're not careful. I always make jokes like this. What they're teaching these kids now, who knows what they're teaching? But previously, they were teaching in the works of the acharyas of the culture, right? Vedas and works of the sadhus. So by brahmacharya, you meet that debt to the rishis. By doing the various yagyas to the devas, you satisfy the debts to the devas. And by having children, you satisfy the debts to the forefathers. So you're supposed to have children to have satisfied the debt to the forefathers. So here he's saying, Rishi, Rinashri Bera Muktanam, they're not free from these three debts. So they've taken renunciation before they satisfied their debts. And this will lead to a discrepancy in the future of their lives. Actually, this is very reasonable. It's not like unreasonable logic that Daksha is giving here. Next sentence. Indeed, they did not properly consider their obligations. So there's the second line. Amimamsita karmana. They did not carefully consider their obligations to the forefathers, to the devas, to the rishis. And they've just renounced kind of impetuously, and it's not very good. So Vighata Shreyasa Papa, oh Narada Muni, oh personality of sinful action. Papa, he's calling Narada a sinful person for this. You have obstructed their progress toward good fortune in this world and the next, because they are still indebted to the saintly persons, the demigods, and their father. Vighata Shreyasa, you have destroyed Shreyas for them. So you know this word Shreyas. Arjuna in the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, he's also confused. Verse 7, Karpanya dosho uparata svabhava prachami tvam dharma samudacheta ya Shreya tam nishchitam bruhitame. He's asking Krishna, you tell me definitively what is Shreyas? What is Shreyas? What is ultimate Shreyas? Ultimate good. So here, Doctor is saying, Vighata Shreyasa, you have destroyed Shreyas for these boys. Because they don't have adhikar, in his mind at least, they don't have adhikar for this life. At least they don't have adhikar for this life yet. And usually, generally the method of getting qualification for renunciation is the karma yoga. So you're very much involved in the social world, but with a certain, as I like to say, karma informed by yoga. And then gradually, your psychic body is purified by that, and you become completely detached from matter. At that time, you may take karma sannyas. Even then, Krishna doesn't really encourage it in the Bhagavad Gita. He kind of likes karma yoga through and through. But if you want to do karma sannyas after you've purified your antakarana, your subtle body, then okay. Then you won't be a pretender. Otherwise, if you renounce before you do that, you're called as a pretender, mityachara uchite. Mityachara means you're outside renounced, but inside you're thinking about the objects. So that is not very good for you, nor is it very good for the culture if they see you like that. It will destroy the culture. So here, Vighata Shreyasa, you've destroyed their auspiciousness because you've engaged them in something they don't have adhikar for. So this criticism, Prabhupada talks about this a lot in his purports, which are quite long. Lokaya ubayokrita, not only have you destroyed Shreyas in this life, but also in the next life for them, for acting outside of their adhikar. So Prabhupada is given this, he said he got this criticism a lot too, that you instruct people in bhakti yoga and then they renounce, but they don't have adhikar for that renunciation. So then they destroy their life now, or they stay in the ashram for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and they have to leave because they don't actually have adhikar for that. And then their life is, at best, their life is slowed down, 15 years behind schedule, so to speak. And they may also feel resentment. This happens all the time. They feel the resentment So they blame ISKCON, they blame, why do you let me do this, blah, blah, blah. So this criticism comes. It's not exactly completely unfair. It's like fair criticism. So Krishna is told in Bhagavad Gita in chapter 3 that you should not make people's intelligence separate from karma. If they're ignorant and they're into path of karma, you should not disturb their mind saying, what is this nonsense, this materialistic activity? No, because they don't have adhikar for gyan. So you shouldn't disturb them. Rather, you should engage them on path of karma, let them get gradually purified. And when they're in an inner space that's qualified for renunciation, they themselves will renounce. If that's what's for them, they'll themselves do it. But if you forcibly make their mind separate from that, and they don't have adhikar, then their life will be ruined. So that is an instruction for Gyan Marg. But in Bhakti Marg, that is not the instruction given. So Narada Muni talks about this in his teachings. He says if someone gives up path of karma, taktva swadharma, they give up their swadharma and do bhakti yoga. But they're bhajana pakpo, they're immature in bhajan. So at a later point, they leave their bhajan also. So their life will be behind schedule, right? Also, Narada Muni said, what's the problem? So people don't like this teaching, but it is there in the Bhagavatam. He says, what's the problem? Because they got the bhakti vasanas, and that's the most important thing in life for the Bhagavatam. And those bhakti vasanas be like the impressions of bhakti. So they will forcibly act in the future. There will be no inauspiciousness for this person. Whereas if they do their swadharma very nicely to the end of their life, but they don't have bhakti, then what do they gain? Simply they gain death, and again, they have to start over. Nothing is gained there. So us devotees, of course, we're like, but what if they do their swadharma and bhakti? You didn't talk about that option. What about that option? You conveniently left that option out of the formula. Of course, Narada Muni will speak about it a little bit later. But the case here is that if you're given instructions to embrace bhakti, it is not considered a defect to abandon path of karma. But if you give instructions to renounce without gyan adhikar, that is you're ruining someone's life. So this is a criticism of Daksha. It is not an unfair criticism. So Prabhupada says this criticism is coming to me also in the most of his purports. I'm also being criticized by the parents of my disciples. These are innocent boys and you're ruining their lives. And they're cursing me also as Daksha is about to curse Narada Muni. Prabhupada quotes this nice verse in the Bhagavatam that says, if one surrenders to God fully, sarvatmana ya sharanam sharanyam, then you are not indebted to these five, the devas, the rishis, the other species of life, the humans, and the forefathers. The Panchamahayaga I mentioned. So as soon as you take birth, you have these debts, but if you fully surrender to God, sarvatmanaya, sharadam sharanyam, then you are free from these debts. Gato mukundam parahitakartu. So Narada Muni is feeling secure. Now they're doing bhakti. They're not obliged to these debts that you're mentioning there. But someone's going to ask a question, it's a fair question. Sarvatmana ya sharanam sharanyam. What does it mean to be fully surrendered? Sarvatmana means you give all of your atma to God. Your body, atma, your mind, atma, your soul, atma. Everything over to God, you surrender. Then you are not indebted. But what if you're only giving a little bit of that? Because it's hard to give everything, at least all at once. Kind of give a little bit of my body, a little bit of the mind, but I still think about other things also. So are they still indebted to the devas and the rishis and so on? It's a good question. But the verse is saying like this: if they take the Narada Muni feeling secure, they are surrendered to God. Therefore, there is no obligation to the debts. So your criticism, though fair, doesn't stand in this particular case. That's what is implied here by the commentary. Okay, next verse. Daksha continues his criticism. Thus committing violence against other living entities by instructing them to act outside of their adhikar. That is, violence, he's saying. This is violence towards other living entities. And yet claiming to be an associate of Lord Vishnu, you are defaming the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You needlessly created a mentality of renunciation in innocent boys. And therefore you are shameless and devoid of compassion, how could you travel with the personal associates of the Supreme Lord? So evam tvam niranu krosho balana matibid hari. Matibid. So these balana matibid, you've contaminated the minds of these young boys. Why you have done this? Because you're without compassion, which Prabhupada translated as violence. Yeah, you don't have any compassion. To give someone instruction according outside of their adhikar is, not compassionate. And in a sense, you can say it's violence because they'll fail because it's outside of their adhikar. Their life will be ruined. And you're sitting eating nice mahaplate of prasad. And if they come and challenge you, say, anyway, you followed it. It is on you. So he says, you've contaminated the minds of these boys because you're without compassion. Hari parshada madhye charasi yashoha nirapatripa. Because you're without shame, you have done this, and you've brought infamy to the Lord. Because you are considered Hari Parshada. So Hari Parshada means the associate of Lord, his retinue. But now, because you've done this wrong act, yasha means you're destroying the fame of God. Now they will blame Krishna. Just like Prabhupada is preaching, the disciples are giving up their nonsense. But the parents think that now you've ruined their lives. So now they don't want to have anything to do with Krishna. Right? What is this Krishna? So you brought infamy to Krishna. That's what Daksha is saying here. Now no one will want to, you say, Hare Krishna. Oh, it's Krishna. They took my son and ruined his life. They think like this. So how can you call yourself an associate of Lord Hari? Bringing him infamy like this. Yeah. These are classic accusations of the grihastas or grihamedis or grihavratas or the devotees also. There's been going on for millennia. These sort of accusations, they're not new. Next verse. Nanu Bhagavata Nityam Bhutanugraha Katara Rite Tvam Soridhaknam Bai Vairam Karam Avairina. All the devotees of the Lord, but you are very kind to the conditioned souls. And are eager to benefit others. So that's the first line. Nanu Bhagavata Nityam Bhuta Anugraha Katara. The Bhagavatas means devotees. Nityam means constantly. Their occupation is Bhuta Anugraha Katara. They show kindness to the Bhutas. Bhutas means the living entities in this world. They come into being. They're called as Bhutas. So Anugraha Katara, the Bhagavatas show compassion to these Bhutas in this world by preaching to them and so on, basically. But although you wear the dress of a devotee, you create enmity with people who are not your enemies, or you break friendship and create enmity between friends. So Rite Tvam, you are not like this. The devotees are Anugraha, Bhuta Anugraha, Katana, they're showing compassion. Rite Tvam, but you are not like this. What is your occupation? Sohridaknam, you destroy friendship. That is your occupation, you destroy friendship. So this is taken in, Sohridaknam means you destroy friendship. And Vairankaram, you generate enmity. Abhairinam, for persons who are not enemies. So Prabhupada is taking it as very interesting and nice. He's taking it as you make families break up. They don't have any enmity toward each other. They have friendship with each other also. But you've preached to them, and now the family has become enemy. Or from the devotee side, especially if they're immature, their family becomes their enemy in their mind. That happens many times. They say, my mom is like this, nonsense, my dad. We were all like this. I don't even want to share my stories. Oh my God, it's just out of control. I said some mean things to my mom, when I first became a devotee. Out of control, just literally out of control, because you think you're on the right path of bhakti yoga, this, that, and the other. So before, my mom was like my best friend. Practically speaking, growing up in high school, she was like my best friend. I would tell her almost everything, except some of the guy stuff. But basically everything else, I shared everything with her, and I would seek her advice or guidance or wisdom. We were very close. Then I became a devotee, and I was like, You know, what mother are you? I have had so many mothers, so much nonsense speaking.
Just a byproduct.
Yeah, just actually, there is no relationship of souls. These are just bodies. We are not the bodies. You know, you're thinking you like, you know, you understand what's. So you've created this enmity in a place where there was no enmity. Now the parents are at war with their children. So most of the devotees are like, they're probably like really resonating with Daksha here. Like, yeah. So Rignam Vai, Vairam Karan Abhairina. Where there was not enmity, now there is enmity. You've destroyed friendship. Or Soridaknam means that Daksha is saying that you and I were friends. You know, I trusted you, and now you've broken that friendship by betraying me in this way. So that's how Sri Vishwanath takes this, destroying a friendship. I trusted you. I put my children, I send them off, and you know, I trusted you would give them right guidance. But instead, you put them on the path of renunciation. So now you destroy friendship between us. So you are not like these devotees. Real devotees are Bhuta Anugraha Kachara. They show kindness to the Bhutas, but you're not like this. Except for you, the devotees are like this. And then, so he's giving a lot of accusations here. All right, next verse. I think the passage is almost over. So, Netam Pungsa Viragasya Chaya Kevalina Mirsha Manyase Yadi Upashamam Sneha Pasha Nikrintana. If you think that simply awakening the sense of renunciation will detach one from the material world, I must say that unless full knowledge is awakened, simply changing dresses as you have done cannot possibly bring about detachment. So Manyase Yadi, if you think Upashamam, renunciation, Sneha Pasha Nikrintana will cut the bonds of affection, then you are mistaken. Sneha Pasham, this is a nice word, means a rope of affection. We encountered it a little bit earlier also, Sneha Pasham. So the rope of affection is very strong. So strong that Queen Kunti herself, she has to pray to the Lord. Sneha Pasham Imam Chindi. Jirda Pandushu Vishnushu. She prays to the Lord himself, please cut the Sneha Pasham. And Queen Kunti, you know, she has her sons who are great devotees of the Lord. And her family, the Vrishnis, they're also great devotees of the Lord. So Krishna was going from Hastinapur, where her sons live, to Dwarka, back to Dwarka, where her family lives. But she wanted the Lord to stay with her and her sons in Hastinapur, which means her family members, the Vrishnis, would be deprived of his association. But if Krishna went over to this side, then she would be deprived. She and her sons would be deprived of his association. So thinking kind of on that material platform, she prays the Lord, please cut the tie of affection, this Sneha Pasham, born of the material attachment. Our acharyas point out there, but they're devotees. So if you cut the rope of affection for devotees, then you're cutting the relationship with the Lord. So there, Sri Vishwanath informs us that the relationship with devotees could have like two sides to them or two dimensions to them. One that relates to them as devotees and one that relates to them as bodies. You know, every relationship will have these two sides to it. So she's praying that the relationship of bodies should be broken because it makes her partial towards one and the other, and then that's when the envy, it gets really complicated. But the relationship based on just the devotion, that should not be cut. But the side based on the connection with bodies, that should be cut because it creates a problem. Prabhupada actually writes a really beautiful purport there, how it is the duty of leaders, kings, devotees, brahmanas to cut the tie of affection so that their affection can spread for all of humanity. Especially if you're a leader like a king, if you work only for your family, which is the custom of modern leadership today, then you're doing harm to all the rest of the population. So all the governments, they really secure opulences for their family at the cost of the regular people. So that means if you have to be a king, you have to cut the tie of affection for your family so that you'll do your duty properly. Otherwise, you'll only work for the welfare of your family and at the neglect of the rest of the millions of people in your kingdom. That is not very good. So it is also true for a devotee or a brahmana that type of affection has to be cut so that their affection can be more widespread for the whole world becomes their family. So anyway, the Sneha Pasham is not easy to cut. That's the point that's Sneha Passion Nikrintana means cutting the tie of affection. But it is not cut simply by taking renunciation. If you renounce without ID card, your affection for the family is still going to be there. It's not like just because I took sannyas, now I don't feel anything for family members and so on. If you don't have that ID card, you will certainly feel. And as a result of that, Tvaya kebali namrisha, you have given them false knowledge. You've given them false hope that simply by renunciation they will give up this sneha. No, that is false. That is not real. They will not be able to do this. In this way, they will not be able to maintain their vairagya. It will not be possible for them. So you're doing so much harm. Next verse. So material enjoyment is indeed the cause of all unhappiness. So he agrees with this point. Poma vishaya tikshmatam. But one cannot give it up unless one has personally experienced how much suffering it is. Nanubhuya na jananti poma vishaya tikshmatam. So, na anubhuya means unless you experience, na janati, you do not know. That is the thinking. This is a common thinking is like this. Experience is the best teacher. We've heard this saying before, right? I didn't know there was a fuller part of this sentence. Experience is the best teacher, but only a fool learns by no other method. So Srila Ranath Maharaj informed us of the full sentence. I didn't know that part existed. I only knew the first part. So experience is the best teacher. That means experience gives the knowledge that you require, right? But is that always true? That is a question. Does experience always really teach? That is a question. Here it says, na anubhuya na jananti. Without experience, you do not know. Poman vishya tikshnatam. The sharpness of sense objects, the sharpness of material enjoyment. So his logic here is that they have not fully experienced material enjoyment, so they don't know what it's really like, which means they're going to still be attracted to it. Whereas if you experience material enjoyment, the sharpness of it, vishya tikshnatam, knowing what it is, then you will not agree to do it again. No, I will not do this again. So you've done them an injustice. You've cut off their opportunity to experience that and become genuinely detached from that. That seems very reasonable. All these parts seem very reasonable. Like, what is? He's mad, but he's like speaking sense here. You know, like this is very reasonable. So he's saying here, from that, one by himself becomes aloof, right? You experience the suffering and you say, okay, never again. So by himself, he becomes renounced. By himself, he becomes renounced. Not by someone else making his mind detached from that. That is his argument here. So you preach to him, do some magic with your words, right? Because personally, when you're innocent, especially when you're young, so when you're young, you're still not fully jaded with life, it's cynical. So young people are still very like idealistic. You know, I could think about when I joined, you know, we're going to save the world by becoming Hare Krishna. Everyone's like super idealistic. So if you're a little bit charismatic, older person, they just use the words and then people they sell out to that, you know. That is basically what social media is also. The magic words, and then people become they become dedicated to some idea. But they're like all foolish, basically. We're all foolish at that point. So Binadiparai means others have made your intelligence like this, but you don't have any of your own realization or experience. So realization by practical experience is more powerful than others making your mind separate from that. And that's what Daksha is saying, which also seems reasonable. Prabhupada gives a nice argument in the purport where he says, a woman has experienced of childbirth, which is very painful. And then after having a child, she said, I'll not do this again. It's too much. Then next year I have another baby. So even though she has the experience again, she does. So his argument is that it's not simply by experiencing that you get detached. In fact, the soul has experienced much suffering life after life. Still we try, isn't it? We adapt. This is the superpower of the jiva. His adaptability capacity is profound. So much so that Kapila says that even in hell, the jiva will find some happiness there. That's how powerful his adaptability capacity is. The jiva is in hell also, but he will say, okay, I got my little corner here. I'll enjoy. So powerful. So even you're experiencing so much suffering, you'll not give it up. Otherwise, we would have already given it up. That's why Prahlad Maharaj says, Puna Puna Charvita Char, they're chewing that which has already been chewed. But what we've already chewed is already given suffering. Why are we again chewing? We can't help ourselves. we like literally can't help ourselves. So this argument, it doesn't stand up in the face of actual reality. Another example is Daksha himself. From your own enjoyment, you lost your head, literally. Your head got removed and replaced with a goat. Like you've experienced suffering on the path of karma, still you were trying to do. But it does seem reasonable at first glance that your own experience will make you detached. But the point is that experience is the best teacher. That means it's giving a certain knowledge that makes you that way. So the point is that the knowledge point is the important factor. So if there are other effective ways of getting that knowledge, why not take them? So one such effective way is hearing from advanced souls. And you get knowledge through that hearing process, and you may also become detached. That is quite a possibility. But Daksha is not amenable to that idea. Okay, final statements here, Daksha, and then we're finished for today. Although I live in household life with my wife and children, I honestly follow the Vedic injunctions by engaging in fruitive activities to enjoy life without sinful reactions. I perform all kinds of yagyas, including the Deva Yagya, Rishi Yagya, Pitri Yagya, and Nir Yagya, Yagya to the human beings. Because these yagyas are called vratas, I am known as Griha Vrata. Unfortunately, you have given me great displeasure by misguiding my sons for no reason to the path of renunciation. This can be tolerated once. So his own self-image is very positive. There is no fault, and usually that's the case when you're like coming down hard on someone. In order for you to do that, you have to be quite unaware of the problematic parts of your own self-image. You know, this is another young word, problematic. That's problematic. So cringe. I heard that so much in 2020. You're problematic. So, but when you have to come down hard on someone, you have to be a little ignorant of the own problematic areas of your own psyche, your own way of thinking about things. So you see here, Yadna Swang Karma Sandhana Sadhuna Griham. I'm nicely situated. I'm doing the proper duties according to the path of karma, karma sandhanam. Sadhunam, I'm a sadhu, as you told earlier. Yeah, I'm a sadhu, Griha Medina. I'm a householder who's doing the, although I'm doing the Griha Medi thing, means the householder thing, I'm a sadhu, I'm doing it right. But you have created, Kritavat Asi Durmarsham, you've created unbearable situation by your preaching. This is not right, Vipriyam, Tavarmarshitam. And I can forgive it. So he wants to say, I'm also a very tolerant person. You've done me wrong with the Haryashras you preached. I tolerate it. Now the Savalashras, you have done the same thing. How can I? This is intolerable. So now he curses him. This is the last, I think this is the last verse. You have made me lose my sons once, and now you have again done the same inauspicious thing. Therefore, you are a rascal who does not know how to behave towards others. You may travel all over the universe, but I curse you to have no residence anywhere. So that is his curse. And Prabhupada says, I have also been cursed in this way by the parents of the members of the Krishna consciousness movement. At one point, I think, is it here or the previous purport, Prabhupada writes that I'm asking my disciples to embrace this curse on my behalf so that I can stay in one place and finish the translation of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Prabhupada is saying that because of his curse, he's traveling all over the world 2 or 3 times per year, all over the world traveling. And as a result, his work of translating the Bhagavatam is not able to go on nicely. So he's asking his disciples in these purports, you should take this curse. You travel on my behalf, preaching Krishna consciousness, so I can stay in one spot and finish his work of translation.
Mhm.
Of course, he did a lot, but he couldn't finish the Srimad Bhagavatam. But it's interesting in these purports, Prabhupada is asking his disciples to embrace this curse. Of course, for Narada Muni, this is not a curse. So the curse is that you can travel everywhere, but you'll have no residence. This is very good. For a renounced bhakta like Narada Muni, this is very good. He anyway wants to move here and there for preaching Krishna consciousness. So this is no curse at all. But in Daksha's mind, as a grihasta, he saw it as a curse. Because grihastas need to be more rooted, right? Grounded. Naturally, they have family and all these responsibilities there. They need some place that grounding. So if a grihasta has to keep moving that's too much. It's too much. So in his mind, this is a curse. But our mind is like, Jaya, it's very good. What is the problem? So in this way, Daksha's thing is concluded. Sri Vishwanath points out that these verses can be taken as glorifications of Narada Muni also by certain, depending on how you use the Sanskrit and Sandhi. But he says, he does it for the first verse, but he says, I don't want to increase the commentary. I want to keep it concise. So we're just going to take the direct meaning that is obvious. But the idea is that Saraswati cannot tolerate the offense of a bhakta. So the words can have different meanings there, which serve as glorification of Narada Muni. So those could have been looked at also. But anyway, the direct meaning is taken. Anyway, so that's it for this passage. It's a nice passage. You can really resonate with Daksha's sentiment, honestly. I think most devotees today would take the side of Daksha more than Narada Muni. It depends on your faith in bhakti, of course. You have to have a lot of faith that the bhakti vasana is really the only worthwhile thing in this material world. And if that is the case, then even if your life gets complicated because you're embracing bhakti, there is no loss in that. But that takes a certain type of faith. So maybe all devotees don't have that sort of faith. So, because we've seen devotees join and their lives seem to be externally like ruined by, fully giving to the Hare Krishna movement, and ISKCON didn't, protect them or didn't provide for them in certain ways. So their lives became a little bit crazy and so having gone through that sort of growing pains as a movement, people are very much skeptical now of this just bhakti without, the more practical elements of supporting one's life. So for this reason, people will empathize quite a bit with Daksha here, I would think. But the Bhagavatam empathize with Narada Muni. Or they're supporting Narada Muni. Yeah, Narada Muni, keep up the good work. After this, Daksha will have daughters, so Narada Muni won't preach to them. Is he a misogynist? So it's considered inappropriate, culturally speaking, that time. So that's why Daksha thought like this also. I'll have daughters this time. And I'll get them married to proper progenitors, and then the work will continue. So, okay, Mukunda has something.
Yeah, Hare Krishna. I really like this section also. I think Daksha's arguments are like super relatable, and they're really easy for someone in today's age to relate with, I think. Yeah, which is also why it's nice that someone could be tied into this section and then hear the counter argument, right. As that the commentators are giving, Prabhupada's giving good counter arguments in the purports and everything. So I really like this section too. And then I was just thinking with this one argument that Daksha's giving about Daksha's saying that they need to experience the material enjoyment so that they can then, sorry, this guy's eating next to me, but they need to experience the material enjoyment so that they can then become, detached from it. But I guess the I'm now thinking devotees also give the argument that you need to experience, like when people are having some questions about their Krishna consciousness, devotees will often say, just continue and eventually you'll experience something. It's like we're asking people to look for that experience also. But do you feel like that's necessarily a good argument to continue devotional service? I don't know. Does that question make sense?
I think so. I'm wondering if they are in the same domain, because experiencing bhakti is a transcendent experience, whereas experiencing suffering is in the material domain. So because they're functioning in two different domains, it seems that so they're not relatable. They're mutually exclusive in that sense. Like if you experience, keep going in Krishna consciousness, then you experience Krishna consciousness, and then at that time you'll become, detached from matter and detached from moksha also, and etc. Whereas the logic here is if I experience suffering in the material world, then I'll become detached from the things that are causes of suffering. But lived experience tells us that that isn't true, that we're often attached to the causes of our misery. For example, the phone. A very practical example, it actually causes of misery for most of humanity, with uncontrolled as we are with our senses. Having these objects are actually a cause of misery, but we cannot give it up. Even after realizing it is a cause of misery, we cannot give it up. So Daksha's argument is functioning in that domain, whereas devotee's argument, I would hope, is functioning in this other domain. If you get anubhava, pradesha anubhava means like experience of God through increased bhakti, then keep going. And then when you have that experience of bhakti, then there's virakti, there's happiness, etc. I don't know, does that answer the question, or am I missing?
Yeah. So yeah, I guess then the way I'm hearing it then is just experience of some material enjoyment is temporary. So you can't, it's not actually a valid argument to say that, oh, just experience the material happiness and then you'll become detached, because it will never end. As opposed to experiencing the spiritual happiness is something that's lasting. So experiencing on the spiritual side is valid. Experiencing on the material side is not, essentially.
No. We have another follow-up to this.
Yeah,
Champaklata.
I think experiencing God is not necessarily because it's unconditional. So we can try to keep experiencing, but
that's a nice point.
It might come, it might not come.
Right. Champaklata is saying experiencing God is not depending on our effort. Sadhu kabunai. Mahaprabhu says this thing also. It's not that by doing sadhana, I'll experience God. By doing sadhana and coming to the right point in sadhana, I can put myself in a space to experience God. But the actual experience of God depends on God. You can put yourself in the right place to see the sun rising, but the sun's rising depends on the sun, not on us. So God is a self-manifest reality. So it's not like anything like putting effort towards something on our own. So in this way, it is also categorically different type of experience. That's a nice point also. Very, just like I shared this with the Rise group last week. Maybe I've shared it here with this group also but I like it so much. Coming to Cali, Colombia, some years ago, I came with Damodar Maharaj, and coming to immigration, the line for immigration, you were there too. The line for immigration was so freaking long, and it wasn't moving. Like it was moving extremely slow. And if you know Damodar Maharaj, he's like efficient. Like he likes things to be done efficiently. He's got that thing. So we were like waiting. The line was hardly moving. So Maharaj was getting a little frustrated. And then he like came over to me and was like, waiting is the greatest surrender. I love that. I'll never forget that. Of course, he spoke it in the context of the line, but I thought about it immediately in the context of spiritual life. Sadhana is like, going to see the sunrise, we got to wait for the sunrise to come up. That's not depending on us. That's a very nice point. So Krishna also says this in Gita, Vishaya vinivartante nirahara siddhi narasa varjam, right? That you may abstain from sense objects, but desire inside remains. And so again, you do. Inevitably, it's just a matter of time. Whereas by param dristva nivartate, by like seeing a higher reality, experiencing the higher reality, then the desire itself is extinguished. So that is also the difference between material and spiritual experiences. Material experiences doesn't extinguish desire. Therefore, desire inevitably becomes a seed of new actions to pursue matter. Whereas spiritual experience extinguishes desire. And so in this way, they are also categorically different. Nice. Mukunda also likes your point, John. Nice point. Okay, anything else anyone likes to say for this section, a little passage here? Otherwise, we can take a little pause for the day. Okay, Om Tat Sat. Thanks a lot. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. We'll see how it continues.